these are federal laws, like the warrantless spying that's been controversial. Do you think there should be a FISA court, or you think there should be, do you think any agency should be able to?
I'm very much in favor of protecting our constitutional rights, and I want to make sure that everything that the government is doing, whether it's at the federal level or the state level, it's vetted through the constitutions. And of course, when we're enforcing here, there's always the overriding concern of the federal constitution, but we also have a state constitution, which in many areas gives broader protections than the federal does. The federal is kind of like the floor below which you may not go. The state constitution has been examined by our state Supreme Court many times and found to provide greater protections than the federal does.
Yeah, so let's just say you suspect a violent criminal and you're making a case against them. There's not a real hard problem to get a judge to sign off on surveillance to catch these bad guys.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you got to have the constitutional requirements that you have probable cause, and if you want a warrant, you got to identify with particularity what it is you're looking for and why the judge should expect that you will find it there.
Okay.
And those are requirements that anybody that has an issue with them at this point in time. I mean, that's been tested for many, many years in the courts.
So it protects the citizens, it gives them due process,
Absolutely.
And it also gives you an avenue to do your job.
Absolutely.
Right? So
and I think it's sometimes it's a rough marriage. But I think overall, police officers are very well versed in what the requirements are. There is a little bit of difference between federal and state. It's a little harder to get a wiretap in the state. They can do that much easier in the federal system. We're a two-party consent law state here in Washington, so we don't get those. But it's working, I think, pretty well, and no one is more concerned about the accused rights than we are. And I tell people that, and sometimes they, what? And I go, well, we're all in this together.
Yeah, you have a job.
I don't want to be violating anybody's rights. And the other thing is not only do we have as prosecutors a duty to make sure that we protect the rights of the accused, but also from a practical standpoint, if you don't do that, if you go to a trial and you win and an appellate court finds that you violated the accused rights, you're going to end up doing that all over again. And that's not good for the taxpayers.
Yeah, that's an expensive way to go about conducting business. I can appreciate the difficulties in all this. Here's another one that you might, that's really not the county prosecutor, but this sanctuary city thing. Any rub between the Spokane County, maybe with the city council and the mayor, but the feds, you know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
It's very controversial. Either we are a sanctuary city, we're not a sanctuary city. It has to do with ice holds, which I hear we're actually doing. Does any of that rub up into your department there that causes you grief or helps you?
Well, we work with, I haven't done a lot of work with ICE. We do work with Border Patrol, and we give them public record information, and occasionally they will locate somebody that they have an interest in. So, I don't have, it doesn't come up against anything in terms of causing us any particular issues. I know it is a controversial thing in our state and our country in instances to enforce federal law. But for me, again, if I'm going to support the federal Constitution and what I do, I'm going to support federal law. I view laws as you follow them until they get changed. And there's a process for doing that, and as long as the law is on the books, we'll enforce whatever's there.
Very good. Let's talk a little bit about Second Amendment, school gun-free zones, gun transfer laws, ammo taxes, bump stocks. Controversial thing, very topical all of a sudden. What's your opinion on the Second Amendment and the rights of people to defend their homes and these schools? Are they safe? I mean, realize you're not law enforcement, but anything happens in those schools, it's going to land up in your lap, right? So,
sure. What I can say that I very much believe in the Second Amendment and the Supreme Court interpretation of what the Second Amendment means. There is a movement I hear right now, or at least there's some tweets and some talk on social media about repealing the Second Amendment, and If we repeal the Second Amendment, well, now we got a whole other issue to look at then. But for the time being, the Second Amendment is the law, and it protects the rights of people that are not otherwise disqualified, for instance, felony convictions and that sort of thing, or that they've been involuntarily committed.
Some sort of mental disorder.
Or they're also restricted if they have certain DV convictions, or even during the pendency of a DV case. They
DV meaning?
Domestic violence.
Oh, right, okay.
But to the extent that they don't have those impediments, I very strongly believe in the wording and the interpretation by the United States Supreme Court time after time of what the meaning of the Second Amendment is. All schools, of course, in the state are gun-free zones in any case. So we have these situations. They do appear to be happening more frequently. And each community is going to have to, unless the state passes some laws or the feds do, is going to have to take up the safety measures that they think are appropriate for their personal or their communities.